a Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, and this is January 30th, 2019. We've got a lot of shows. We've got about 214 episodes. If you want to see them, you can go to my website at walkinthepark.tv, and that's where you can also see my cablecast schedule. This is a cablecast on Channel 13, Ithaca, New York. It's public access television on our Pegasus Community Media Center, and you can see all of our series. If you go to our website at pegasus.webstarts.com, you can see all of our series and when they're shown and so forth, including my schedule. So you can also become a producer yourself if you live in the Ithaca area, Ithaca, New York, and you can look on the website here, and you can see the schedule of trainings. Come down, you can see up on there. There's a line up there that says training. Maybe you can read. In any case, you take a course. You can learn to use our studios, and you can also learn to use our equipment that you can borrow and take out in the field and make your own video, your own show on public access television. There's like, I don't know, 20,000 viewers or something on Spectrum TV in the area here, so you get a lot of chance to get some exposure for the things that you would like to share with people. And what I like to share with people is my love of the parks. And it's cold now, so let's take a look at some parks. Well, actually, this is a little town park in Lansing, the Ludlow Falls, which is got a lot of ice on it. This was on the 26th, taken by a photographer named John Rogers. Gave me permission to use this photograph. So we've got some winter shots here. Of course, everybody knows and loves Teganic Falls, 215 feet high, and it's starting to build up an ice dome at the bottom. Sometimes that ice dome, if you have an extended period of very bitter cold weather, it can build up a dome up higher than halfway up the falls. But it's beginning now, and I imagine it's taller now because we've had some very cold weather. We're having it right now. It's single digits and going down below zero at night. So here we are at Ithaca Falls, and similarly, it's building up ice. It can get all clad with ice. So I'm sure it all looks more icy now than it did just 4 days ago. And finally, this one is in Treman State Park, and it's called, well, that's the story here. What is it called? Well, it's called Lower Falls, and some people call it Enfield Falls. And that is a whole subject that we're going to talk about. Where is and what is Enfield Falls? Well, Enfield Falls. Well, let's take a look at what I call Lower Falls and what it's been called Lower Falls. But there are people starting to call it other things. Now, this is what it looked like in November. This is a winter shot. I think this is in March. Obviously not this year yet, but March a couple years ago. And this is what everybody loves to see is in the summer, when you have probably the most charming swimming area in all of New York State parks is at the base of this waterfall. And sometimes it has a lot of water falling on it like this, and sometimes it's more like that. But I actually went, back when I worked for the state parks many years ago, went to the New York State Fair, and we had a picture of this swimming area on an exhibit that we'd put together there. And people were coming up at the state park at the fair, coming up and seeing this picture and say, "Where is that? That's amazing. I want to see that. I want to go there." So we're very lucky. Of course, we won't tell them how cold the water is, as you may know, if you are familiar with it. Can you see what's about to happen to this guy going off the diving board here? It looks like a belly flop, and it looks like he's got the belly to flop. So anyway, so what is it? Is it, some people have been calling it Enfield Falls of recent years. Didn't used to call it Enfield Falls. All the old maps say Lower Falls. I've always called it Lower Falls. I worked for the state parks for decades, and we called it Lower Falls. And there's been a couple of mugs actually made, and artwork made of the waterfall. This is Lower Falls, and let me see, what's the name of the guy who, do I have that on here? What is his name? I'm Stephen something or other. Oh my, what is it? Oh yeah, Steve Harrington is makes mugs like this, and with scenes on them, and he's got some of of, he calls it Lower Falls. But there was another mug made by someone a number of years ago. Very beautiful pen and ink drawing, I think it was. And he did it at Titanic Falls, and he did it at Ithaca Falls and other waterfalls. But he called this one, he called that one, this waterfall, he called it Enfield Falls. And a lot of people saw that, and people started calling Lower Falls Enfield Falls. And I'm on the board of the Friends of Robert H. Treman State Park, and there was even a little confusion there as where's Enfield Falls. So let's go up in Robert Treman State Park. Well, as we still are, obviously, the lower falls is in the lower end of Robert Treman State Park, but in the upper end, you hike in for about 10 minutes in the gorge, and there is what's called Lucifer Falls. Lucifer Falls. And let's look at this one here. Here's a picture from the 1800s, also called Lucifer Falls. And let's find another one here. But look at this photograph. I don't know when this was from. It says Enfield Falls. So which is it? Well, let's take a look here what we've got. Here's another picture here. This says Lucifer Falls, an old, obviously old photograph. By the way, you can't really get this view of the falls anymore because that portion is a little, going off the trail there is now, they don't like you to do that because it's kind of a dangerous rockfall area. And also people climb up on the falls there and risk themselves. Now, take a look at this picture. This is the cover of an old brochure before, sometime in the early 1930s, I think, Enfield Falls State Park. And that picture right there is of what we call Lucifer Falls or Enfield Falls today. So there's some confusion. So what happened? What happened there? Well, it turns out, well, we'll get to that in a minute here. Let's see. Let's take a look at some, go back down to Lower Falls here. And this is an old picture of this swimming area. Very old picture. We'll take another view of it here, and they're calling it Lower Enfield Swimming Pool, Robert H. Treman State Park. So it's Enfield Glen. The gorge that it's all in is called Enfield Glen. Original name of the park was Enfield Glen Reservation. And they used to call it Niagara Reservation, Watkins Glen Reservation. Before they started calling them state parks, they were calling them reservations. Anyway, so it's Enfield Glen. People called it, for many years he called it Enfield, and some still do, some of the old timers. And now look at this old picture. This was taken, I'm sure, before 1950, because I posted this up on Facebook asking people how it differed from what they've seen. And somebody said he went swimming there in 1950. And this is not where the diving board you see on the left there is today. Let's go back up and find that. So you see the diving board there is right up by the falls, but not in this picture. So look, the diving board is right by the dam that creates the pool that people swim in. So also notice I don't see any lifeguards. Now, is there no diving board by the falls? I don't know. I don't have any picture close up to that. So when was this all built? Well, let's take a look. There's some guys over there by the falls. This does not at all look like the swimming area does today, though. Let's zoom in. Looking from across the pool, there are some men working over there. They are working. Here they are. They are doing some masonry work and stone work and so forth. And look, there's ice and snow in the falls. Oh my goodness, they're doing that in the wintertime. So who are these guys? Look at them. They're working in there. This was a long time ago. This was in the 1930s. So who were they? Well, they were workers from the Civilian Conservation Corps. Now, the Civilian Conservation Corps was a 1930s Depression-era works project established by Franklin Delano Roosevelt to put young men to work and learn skills, and also do a lot of public works projects in our parks of all sorts. National parks, state parks, national forests, municipal parks, all over the place. We had a number, there were camps all over. And we had a camp right at Robert Treman State Park. There was another one right in Ithaca, what's now Morse Chain Company. There was one at Fillmore Glen State Park, one at Watkins Glen, and there were others. So this is a camp that was in Upper Robert Treman State Park, or Upper Enfield, back then. Back then it was called Enfield Glen Reservation or Enfield Falls State Park or Enfield Glen State Park. So I've seen all of those names from that time. And here's a, out in this area, there's a trail that goes back in the woods to this site here, which is now all grown up in forest, because that park, that was closed in, what, 1941. And the guys presumably went off to war. Anyway, they Camp SP6, they worked here during the Depression and did lots of improvements in the park. And so we'll look at some more of those in a second here. So just to let you know, again, this is Walk in the Park, walkinthepark.tv to see all my episodes. That is a website, walkinthepark.tv. This is Pegasus Public Access Community Television in Ithaca, New York on Channel 13 on your cable in the area here and online at walkinthepark.tv. And there's also some shown at our website, pegasus.webstarts.com for our system here. So, okay, so we're going to go back a little history here. This question about what's Enfield Falls, where is Enfield Falls? Well, this is an old map from the 1800s of the town of Enfield. And right in the middle is Enfield Center, and that still exists. And then you look on the lower right, very extreme lower right of the map, there is the hamlet of Enfield Falls. And that is now where the upper park is. And here's an old U.S. Geological Survey map showing the hamlet of Enfield Falls right in the center there. And then just to the right, you might be able to make out in the thickly hashed area there with showing the gorge, it says falls. It says 210 feet. That's actually 115 feet been determined since then, not quite as high as they thought. But actually, Teganic Falls is more like 215 feet, and I've seen pictures that said it was 210 in the old days. But anyway, Enfield Falls was a hamlet there, what they call an agricultural service hamlet. And there were general store, blacksmith shop, sawmill, and a grist mill, and other places there. And there was also a tourist hotel, which opened in the 1850s, I think. And here's an ad in the paper. It says it is open for the season of 1881. All who wish to visit this beautiful place can get first-class hotel accommodations. Well, that burned down in 1906 or thereabouts. But some Cornell archaeologists have been working with the Friends of Robert H. Treman State Park and the state park to find the buildings that were in that little hamlet, which is now mostly gone except for the mill and the mill owner's house. Those are the only buildings standing. And so they found the archaeological sites and learned a whole lot about them. And there's actually a picture now been found of the hotel, but I don't have it for this presentation. So people would come and stay in the hotel and maybe have a dinner there or whatever, might stay overnight, and they would walk into the gorge to see Enfield Falls. Now look at the rickety railings and staircases they have there. That was not quite as civilized as today. So let's zoom in on the left there where it says Enfield Falls near Enfield Center, New York. So this originally was Enfield Falls, but it was renamed more or less Lucifer Falls. I think I remember a story that there was a travel writer that may have sort of given it that name, but anyway, it was taken up by the I guess by the hotel proprietors that owned the falls. And I'm told that back in those days, the places that like this that became of interest to tourists, they like to put sort of scary names or foreboding names, make the place more dangerous sounding or something like that. So we had Enfield Falls became Lucifer Falls, and just upstream from there is Devil's Kitchen. And I've seen another picture that labeled Devil's Kitchen named it Indian Kitchen. So I don't know all the history of that. Well, the Civilian Conservation Corps did a lot more work in the park. They built the campground, they built the cabins, they did a lot of work on the trails, they built obviously the swimming area, and they built some buildings. This incredible, beautiful bathhouse, stone bathhouse, they built that. So back in the 1930s, and we still use that today, and it's beautiful. Here's another view of it from across Enfield Creek. This is very near the swimming area. But As you know, these streams around here tend to have floods from time to time. We get heavy rains or snow melt or a combination thereof. And that can do a lot of damage to our gorges and to our parks. It's really quite a lot of work every year to keep our gorges open, and often trails are ripped out and have to be repaired. Sometimes the upper gorge is closed during some of the season while they repair stonework that has been ripped out around Lucifer Falls particularly. Here's a flood that happened. I think this was August 2013, and that is the lower falls, and the footbridge just below it, and it's really roaring. But that was not as big as the big flood of July 7th, 1935, which is to locals around here very famous. And here's a truck flipped in Enfield Creek by the floodwaters in July 1935. That's a dramatic shot there. The guys these are CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps workmen, I guess, on the bank, or else they're park employees. And there's the Enfield Creek is really ripping. This is probably after it did most of its damage. And now look at the bathhouse. This is looking from up on the top of the cliff across the creek. Look at the bathhouse down there. Let's get a closer look. Look at the damage that was done to that beautiful bathhouse. So that was amazing. So now this is after. This is the after shot. Notice that they built a wall there at just above the creek, and the bathhouse is repaired. The CCC, under the supervision of park masons, I'm sure, rebuilt everything. And let's go back and compare this picture with this wall, which is there today and protects the bathhouse from any subsequent floods. Now here's what it was before they built that wall. So it was just a bank, an embankment that was easily, here it is again. There was no wall, and so it was easy for the stream to jump its bank and go up and do that damage that was almost ruined the building. So that beautiful bathhouse. So a lot of work went into that building, both during the building and the reconstruction of the building. So, well, this is what we were looking forward to. Maybe not the belly flop, but we are looking forward to summer coming. I can't look too far ahead now. It's still the middle of winter is coming up right now. February 2nd, Groundhog Day, I think, is the middle of winter. And we're, oh well, enjoy it. I'm going to show you now a short video of different views at different times of lower falls. Times when the water is high, times when the water is not so high. Times, there is a clip in there that was taken by the park showing heavy machinery clearing out the swimming area. After the winter they have to do this, or after any high water time. Let's get back, say like this happened in the summer, they have to do this again. All this sand and gravel and rocks and everything gets washed into what's the swimming area, and they have to use heavy machinery to dig it out so that you can go swimming. So let's take a look at that video coming right up here. We'll get it queued up. And come on. Just put back to John Rogers' picture from 4 days ago, just to bring us back to reality. It's going to be a long time till the summer comes back and we go swimming again in that cold water, the base of Lower Falls, and what used to be called Enfield Falls State Park, Enfield Glen State Park, Enfield Glen Reservation, Robert H. Treman State Park. It was renamed Robert H. Treman State Park because Robert H. Treman was the first commissioner of the Finger Lakes State Parks Commission from 1924 until he died in 1937. So it was renamed in 1938 after him. And the land around the upper park that formed the initial park, which where the hamlet of Enfield Falls was, from where Lucifer Falls and Enfield Falls is and was donated to New York State by Robert Treman and his wife Laura in the late 19-teens, and the park was opened in 1920. So they visited the park in 1915. So just about 100 years ago. In fact, next year is the centennial of Robert H. Treman State Park. So we're trying to cook up some ideas of things to do to celebrate that 100 years of the oldest state park in the Ithaca area, not the oldest state park in the Finger Lakes region. That actually would be Watkins Glen State Park, which celebrated its centennial in 2006. It was opened in 1906. That's the oldest in the Finger Lakes region. Still not the oldest in the state. That one would be Niagara Falls, and that was 1890 or so. And then there's a few small parks in the Thousand Islands, which are in the 1890s. So we're not the oldest in the state, but we're pretty old there. Like me, I'm getting on. So here's a little stunt that happened almost 5 years ago. That is a drawing of Mayor Savante Myrick, who's still mayor of Ithaca, in 2014, Saturday, June 21st, 2014. He jumps into the gorge at Robert H. Treman State Park. Myrick agreed to the stunt if people donated at least $2,500 to a hunger program for United Way of Tompkins County. So he said if they reached that goal, he would jump into the water, fully clothed in his suit, at the base of Lower Falls. And so this picture was attributed to the Associated Press, but where they say, jumps into the gorge at Robert Treman State Park on that date. Yeah, okay, that's the same caption. So that was pretty cool. He got that sequence of him going in to the water. So we have one other thing I want to show you here, which is something that happened in last September, a unique event where an Indian, and that is from India, but people in America, Indian Americans, had what's really a once-in-a-lifetime event, a concert, a performance at Lower Falls, what's called a Tabla Concert, a Tabla Concert. And this has only been done one other time, and it was done in India. But anyway, they were looking for a waterfall, and they did some percussion music, mostly kids, doing this to resonate with the sounds of the waterfall. So that's really what they were doing. It's not melodic. So let's take a look at that, at the Tabla Concert last September in
My name is Sejal Kukadia,
Okay.
and I'm from the Thalim School of Indian Music, which is located in New Jersey and New York, where we teach tabla, which is a percussion instrument of India. We came up here because we wanted to get the backdrop of a raging waterfall, see the relationship between rhythm and sound and nature.
Okay, so that was only a minute, but really a unique event that I was very lucky to go to. A lot of people came from all over, particularly people with some connection, family or you know, of the kids and so forth. So it was quite a crowd. So I had fun videoing that. So, well, that's winding down our time here. So I want to thank you all for joining me on this frigid day in January 2019, and maybe you'll be watching this some other time of year. But so I encourage you to, when the weather is a little more benign, to turn off these screens that we tend to look at and go outside, take a walk in the park, get some fresh air, get some sunlight as much as you can find. So see you again next time. Is a